So that's cool. They just added in a battle royale in Red Dead. I could have swore they already had something like this in the Showdown series, where you basically hunt each other down in the forest with a bow and arrow until one person survives. I thought that was a battle royale. Apparently I was wrong. I mean, this is exactly what happens when you try to capitalize on something that's extremely popular, but your first attempt doesn't actually hit the mark, and yet you're too proud to admit it. So instead of taking that back or revising or editing that, no. That you leave that there, you throw out a second game mode. Now people got options, and not only do they have options, but this newer game mode that's just a little bit different from the other game mode is temporarily more popular. And on top of that, those of us that have been complaining that Red Dead Online has been starved of content, present company included, can be shut up now because, well, here it is. Here's your content. What's going on, guys? My name is Cynic. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're doing something a little bit differently. It's not another complaint video about Red Dead's multiplayer being starved of content, because obviously, as I just showed you, Rockstar's put my foot in my mouth and said, here's more content, little and that was it. I mean, if I was a bigger one, maybe they would have added in more than just a battle royale mode, which is one of those game modes that either someone really loves or someone else really hates. I don't care too much for it. So honestly, it was like, if you might as well not even give me an update at all. You might as well just came at me with the Activision approach and try to sell me an in-game hat for $2.50 real-life currency. I think I would have been less insulted that way. And then on top of that, come out and say that the game's going to be in beta for a couple more months. I swear, when this is out of beta, you better have a lot of in store for launch, because man, are you milking this. We're over here waiting while Grand Theft Auto 5 had 2 new updates, and we just got a mediocre mode to hold us for the meantime. Anyways, we'll sound like a bunch of ungrateful crybabies later. Like I said, this is a little bit of a different video. In this video, we're going to be focusing on Red Dead Redemption 2's storyline, at least a specific part of it anyways. I'm comfortable enough to say that the Red Dead series has a pretty solid track record with being good at delivering a solid narrative experience. I mean, I would say that they're 2 for 2 so far. Red Dead Redemption, the original story, was amazing. The ending to part 2 is heartbreaking. Strong narrative with a real emphasis on realism. Yeah. If you can call it that. However, there is one aspect of Red Dead Redemption 2's story that a lot of people, myself included, has a little bit of a problem with, and that is the plot twist of Guarma. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this portion of the game. Ultimately, I feel like it was something that was rushed, and the game honestly could have kept going and flowing perfectly along, even if they didn't even add this portion in. It was a little extra content, but it wasn't as lovingly crafted as the rest of the game was. At least that's my opinion on that portion of the game. Just, you know, bare bones spitting it to you just off the top of my head. You know, the first playthrough with it was unsatisfying. The second playthrough, I realized, hey, it was a lot faster and a lot quicker than I would expect an unseen area to really be. You know, you're kind of just here just to, like I said, push the story along, even though the story could have been perfectly fine without it. You know, after the bank robbery, they could have very easily just jumped from that chapter to the next one and just show an Arthur with longer hair writing into his journal with a quick monologue recapping exactly what went on during the time frame where you jumped from that chapter to the next one, or even during the time that would have been Arthur, Dutch, and the rest of them stranded on the island of Guarma. They could have very easily just switched this perspective from them to John and see exactly how he got captured during the failed bank robbery at St. Denis and the things that he went through until finally he was sentenced to Sisika Penitentiary. Those things would have worked perfectly fine in replacement of the whole Guarma Island plot twist. Now, there's a lot of reasons and explanations as to why Rockstar threw in this whole Guarma plot twist, but honestly, I haven't heard anyone come up with this theory, and this is my own personal one on this topic. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and beyond coming to the conclusion that I have a little bit of a morbid mind and probably see some professional help sooner rather than later, this actually makes the whole Guarma sequence a little bit more enjoyable. Yes, a little far-fetched, but hear me out. So before we speak about Guarma itself, let's talk about how Dutch, Arthur, and the rest of these guys found themselves in this situation. Obviously, before shit hit the fan, Dutch and Hosea had this huge grand plan of robbing the Bank of St. Denis, you know, the final heist, so that way they can move on to Tahiti. Tahiti, of course, being this golden place that the guys are trying to reach because it's a tropical paradise, essentially, in their eyes. And in order to get there, they need money. And that's how the robbery of the Bank of St. Denis comes into place. And then, of course, in the course of this robbery, Hosea dies, Lenny dies, John gets captured. Abigail, John's wife, is also presumed to either be captured or killed, while the remainder of the gang is forced to hide out in this building, hoping to finally find a break in the amount of heat that's around them so that way they can escape. Now, I've had a few theories here, but the first one is, what if Arthur actually died during the bank heist? Far-fetched, I know, but hear me out. The first example to hold a little bit of weight to this theory is, if you ever tried, you can't loot all of the 3 vaults inside of this bank. It'll only allow you to loot one of the 3, because then that's when the game automatically starts letting the fan. Now, if you get too close to this doorway after looting the first safe, it's automatically going to kick in the cutscene, to continue this failed robbery. But if you stay away from this doorway and you try doing exactly what I did, which is place dynamite on the 2 remaining safes because there's no prompts to crack them open, but if you place dynamite on these 2 remaining safes and you try igniting it, nothing happens.
Would you? Shit.
I mean, okay, you got me. They explode, but what I mean is the safes don't open. I mean, yeah, you can go ahead and try a second round of dynamite, but honestly, you're guaranteed to practically kill yourself and get these damn things open.
Would you? Shit.
I also tried placing dynamite on all 3 of these safes before trying to crack any specific safe, and nothing happens. You basically just screw yourself because the explosion burns the numbers off the safe, and you can't really see exactly how to crack it open because you can't see the numbers on the little dials.
Okay. I feel sorry for you. I'd shoot myself in the head.
But taking into consideration the fact that you can't loot all 3 of the safes, and assuming that this was actually a trap given how fast the Pinkertons showed up as well as how easy it was for them to capture Hosea, the theory I propose goes as follows. So after Arthur gets the bank manager to open up the vault, he is then ambushed by a St. Denis police officer or a member of the Pinkerton detective agency that was hidden in there in anticipation of the robbery. And it's at this point where he's focused on looting this first safe that he's ambushed by the hidden officer, who either knocks Arthur unconscious or ends up shooting him. And for the sake of entertainment, we're going to go ahead and say he was fatally or mortally wounded. While he's unconscious or on the floor bleeding to death, he envisions how the failed robbery would have played out if he had made it past this point. In other words, everything that happens after looting the first safe is all in an illusion. The way he sees the rest of this robbery playing out, as none of this actually happens. But if this is just a vision, why did things play out the way that they do? Well, first let's talk about the 3 casualties of the robbery. Lenny, Hosea, and John, 2 of which were killed while John was captured by the police. The 2 killed were ones that Arthur still trusted and respected, while John being captured could just be him still sorting out his grudge toward him for up and leaving for almost a full year. This is also backed up by the actual in-game events, as even though at this point he has lightened up on John, he still doesn't seem to be on the best of speaking terms until he returns from Guarma. Now, I don't really think too much of an explanation is needed for Hosea and why he would still be considered to be one of the few people that Arthur trusts and respects, but as far as Lenny goes, through some side dialogue content when you talk to him at, I believe it's the Shady Bow camp, he mentions that even though Lenny is one of the youngest, a lot of the older guys can definitely learn from him. It's also worth noting that during the mission where Dutch and Arthur plan on robbing the trolley station in St. Denis, Arthur's the reason why Lenny is there, not Micah, because he vouches to Dutch on his behalf.
Look at it. I think we can hit it.
I ain't never robbed in a city before.
Well, you leave the planning to me. You'll ride with me?
Always. Is it just you and me?
No, we'll need one more, I reckon.
I say Lenny.
Not Micah.
Well, that depends if you want a massacre or a payday.
So because of those 2 prime examples, I would go ahead and say that Lenny is one of the few people that Arthur actually thinks very highly of that's still in this gang. Now, of course, John, like I said, gets captured by the police. This is a little bit more ominous because although at this point in the game, he is on better speaking terms than when he first got introduced to Arthur at the beginning of this game, he still is holding that grudge. I mean, honestly, the game really doesn't show him get rid of it until after he returns from Guarma and he learns that he's sick with tuberculosis. So with that small grudge in mind that he still might be holding towards John, he figured he might as well be captured and set to be hanged as an outlaw rather than meet a swift death like the other 2. Maybe even humiliated and put on display as the only member to be captured from this failed bank robbery. Now, as far as the rest of the crew goes, the gold that was taken from the bank and how they all ended up on the island of Guarma could be explained from this theory as well. You see, prior to the heist, almost from the beginning of the game, you can see Arthur's faith in Dutch continuously wane. It seems to plateau after returning from Guarma, but with this theory in mind, it gives the vision of Dutch's paradise at Tahiti and the hellish Civil War torn island of Guarma that our crew ended up finding themselves on instead a different perspective. You see, the point of all of this is to demonstrate Arthur's lack of trust in Dutch, that the fantasy island that is known as Tahiti he seems to be so desperately chasing after doesn't actually exist, and that this is just another poor decision on his part, that if he and the gang decide to listen and blindly stay loyal to him, they'd all just be met with another tragedy, similar to that of the one in Blackwater, which also led to the death of a few others and the capture of Sean Maguire. Something I also want to note here is the gold that was robbed from the bank ended up sinking at the bottom of the ocean. Another loss and a big take similar to that of Blackwater, while Dutch gave up the little bit he had for a guide to rescue Javier while captured on Guarma.
Money, the gold.
Aquí.
Dámelo.
Oh, it's genuine, you old hag.
Ay. Vamos. Vamos. Rápido.
Now that gold right there, that's the last bit of gold I have in my pocket from the bank. The rest of it is
At the bottom of the sea.
exactly.
He then turns around and ends up murdering her in cold blood. He does so claiming she was going to quote-unquote betray us, and that he's just trying to make sure that they survive.
You sure you're alright, Dutch?
I am just trying to make sure that some of us survive, Arthur.
The cynicism of this theory. So, the gold sinking to the bottom, as I said, could just be seen as a repeat of the money that the gang had to leave behind in Blackwater. No matter what they do, the work doesn't pay off and they end up worse off than before. Dutch, being the only one with any money, gives up the little bit he has in a seemingly selfless, righteous effort to save the gang from falling apart. In this case, specifically to save Javier, doing all of the crazy shit necessary, in this instance murdering a helpless old lady while claiming to be the one to save them from the trouble his bad and poorly executed decisions have brought them. This theory in a nutshell goes hand in hand with Arthur's continuous doubt in Dutch, which starts at the beginning of the game, mimics that situation of Blackwater that initially had the gang go on the run into the mountains to escape the law with no money and members of the gang spread out while fighting those most faithful to Dutch on a Civil War torn tropical island, the ultimate punishment for blind loyalty to him. A longer video than usual, but hopefully an interesting one at that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What do you think of this theory? By all means, feel free to poke some holes into it if you want to grow on top of it and explain a little bit after the Guarma situation through this theory. Feel free to do so. If there's any other holes in the story or any more theories you want me to post, let me know. I'm more than willing to. But like always, guys, thank you all so much for watching, as I do greatly appreciate it. My name is Cynic, but until next time, my friends, don't believe everything you're told, and I'll see you guys all next time.